Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are definitely not just going to sit here and dryly read through the Malaysian Contracts Act 1950. No way. Instead, we're going to build a cinematic memory palace together. We'll construct a vibrant, interconnected mental map that will help you actually understand, master, and easily recall the absolute beating heart of contract law. So get ready to visualize the law like you never have before.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a scenario. Picture this. I look you dead in the eye and say, hey, I promise to give you my car tomorrow for absolutely free. You're thrilled, right? But then the next day rolls around and I completely change my mind. So here's the big question. Can you sue me for breaking my promise? Take a second and really think about it. Well, the answer is no, and the reason why lies in the fundamental core of contract law, a powerful concept called consideration.
All right, here is the blueprint for our memory palace. We are going to define consideration, check out its exceptions, map out the three types, break down the key rules, view the ultimate map, and finish up with a recall challenge. Let's get building.
Let's start right at the foundation. Under Section 26 of the Contracts Act, the general rule is crystal clear. An agreement made without consideration is void. It's literally dead on arrival. But what does that actually mean in practice? Let's break down Section 2D into 5 simple steps. Step 1. What it means. It's essentially an act, or a promise to act, done at the desire of the promiser. Step 2. Why it exists. The law is here to enforce mutual bargains, not just police free gifts. Step 3. When it applies. It kicks in the exact moment parties try to form a binding contract. Step 4. The key requirement. There absolutely must be an exchange. And Step 5. Our visual analogy. Picture a seesaw. For a contract to be perfectly balanced and legally binding, both sides have to put some weight, some value onto their side of the seesaw. If only one person puts weight on it, well, it tips over. It's void.
So how do we actually define that weight on our seesaw? Let's play a short movie in our heads about the classic case of Curry v. Misa. Imagine two serious business people making a high-stakes deal. The court in Curry v. Misa laid down the law ruling that valuable consideration has to consist of a benefit accruing to one party or a detriment suffered by the other. So if I give you my car, you get a huge benefit, the car itself. But if you give me money in exchange, you suffer a financial detriment. You lose that cash. The court's decision firmly established this fundamental legal principle of exchanged value. Definitely remember this case because it proves that consideration isn't just about cold hard cash. It's about any legal right, profit or loss being exchanged between the parties.
Okay, 10-second recap to lock this in. Consideration is the foundation. It equals an exchange of value, whether that's a benefit or a detriment. And under Section 26, if you have an agreement without this exchange of consideration, that agreement is completely 100% void.
Now let's step into the living room of our memory palace. We're looking at exceptions, or scenarios where nothing is actually something.
Let's apply our 5-step breakdown to these fascinating exceptions. First, what do they mean? They are highly specific scenarios where a contract is perfectly valid even without a balanced seesaw. Second, why do they exist? Well, because human societal values like moral obligations and family ties sometimes just outweigh strict commercial bargains. Third, when do they apply? Section 26A applies to natural love between near relations. Section 26B applies when you're compensating someone for a past voluntary act or something you were legally compellable to do, and Section 26C applies to written promises paying off statute-barred debts. Fourth, the key requirement here is almost always written proof or a very specific past action. And fifth, for our visual analogy, think of these exceptions as golden tickets. They literally allow you to bypass the seesaw rule entirely.
And let's see how those golden tickets actually play out in court. Picture the short movie of Ritan Sosim. A family tries to enforce an agreement based purely on natural love and affection under Section 26A. The court had to step in and decide, are they actually near relations? Because they were adopted family members under specific customary laws, the court closely analyzed their ties, ultimately proving that the exact legally recognized nature of the relationship is strictly required for this exception to work. Next up, imagine the case of J.M. Wotherspoon. An agency firm voluntarily acts on behalf of another company. Later on, a promise is made to pay them for that past work. The court heavily scrutinized Section 26B. Was it a past voluntary act? Yes, it was. The court upheld that if someone voluntarily helps you out and you later promise to pay them for it, that promise is binding even without any new consideration.
Now watch out, because here is a massive exam trap based on illustration E to Section 26. Imagine you borrowed some money 10 years ago. Legally, the time limit to sue you has completely expired. It's what we call a statute-barred debt. But today, maybe feeling a little guilty, you write out a signed letter promising to finally pay it back. Can you be sued on this brand new promise? Take a moment. What do you think? Yes, you absolutely can. Under Section 26(1)(c), and as seen in cases like Unitel Technology and Webb v. McGowan, a written and signed promise to pay a legally expired debt literally revives that debt. Your new written promise is totally valid without any new consideration on the seesaw.
All right, here is your quick 10-second recap for the living room. Exceptions to the general rule mean a contract is valid without consideration if it involves written natural love between near relations, a past voluntary act, fulfilling a legally compellable duty, or a written promise to pay a statute-barred debt.
Let's keep moving. We are now stepping into the hallway of our memory palace to check out the 3 timelines of consideration. Students always confuse these, so let's introduce 3 distinct characters to help us out. First, we have Ali the baker. He represents executory consideration. That's a promise for a promise. Ali promises to bake a cake tomorrow, and you promise to pay him tomorrow. The action is entirely in the future. Second, meet Sidi the mechanic. She represents executed consideration. This is a promise for an act. Say you offer a 100 ringgit reward for finding your lost cat. Sidi actually finds the cat. Her physical action executes the contract. Third, here's Muthu the rescuer. He represents past consideration. The act happens way before any promise is even made. Muthu saves your life on a Monday. Then, on Tuesday, you promise to give him a reward. The action is totally in the past.
Let's anchor CT and Muthu to their famous case laws. For CT the mechanic, representing executed consideration, we look at the legendary Carlyle case. The company promised a reward to literally anyone who used their smoke ball and still caught the flu. Mrs. Carlyle didn't promise to use it, she just went ahead and acted. Her physical action of using the smoke ball completed the executed consideration. Now for Muthu the rescuer, representing past consideration, we look at Kapung Prospecting Limited v. Schmidt. Schmidt did consultancy work for a company before it was even legally formed. Later on, the company promised to pay him. The court said yes. Under Malaysian law, his past action was perfectly valid consideration for the future promise.
10-second recap time. Do not fall into the classic trap of confusing executed with past consideration. Executed is Sidi. You offer a reward first and then she acts. Past is Muthu. He acts first, completely on his own, and you offer the reward later. Keep those timelines straight. All right. Let's step into the kitchen of our memory palace to look at the key rules and elements of consideration.
First rule on the menu. Consideration must be sufficient, but it absolutely need not be adequate. What in the world does that mean? Well, imagine I own a brand new shiny red Ferrari worth millions. I decide to sell it to you for exactly 1 single ringgit. Is this a valid contract? Yes, it is. Under illustration F of Section 26, the law only cares that some value is exchanged, meaning it's sufficient. It doesn't care if the value is perfectly fair, meaning it doesn't have to be adequate. The famous short movie here is Fang Sui Kim v. Bay I Hawk. A piece of land was sold for a ridiculously low price, but the court ruled that as long as there was free consent between the parties, the sheer inadequacy of the price does not void the contract. So yes, you can legally buy a Ferrari for 1 ringgit if the seller genuinely agrees to it.
Next rule. Consideration can move from the promisee or any other person. Picture a split screen in your mind right now. On the left side, strict English law says you, the promisee, must provide the consideration yourself. But on the right side, Section 2D of our Malaysian Contracts Act is way more flexible. It says consideration can come from any other person. The short movie for this is Venkata Chennaiya. A mother gave land to her daughter, but on the condition that the daughter pays an annuity to the mother's sister, who is the aunt. Well, the daughter eventually stopped paying, so the aunt sued. The daughter argued, "Hey, you didn't give me any consideration for this." But the court said, it doesn't matter. Under our law, the consideration moved from the mother, who is any other person, making the contract perfectly valid for the aunt to enforce.
Now let's tackle Section 64, Part Payment of a Debt. Here is our 5-step breakdown.
Step 1, what it means: a creditor can accept a lesser sum of money to completely discharge a much larger debt. Step 2, why it exists: mainly to encourage debt settlement and avoid drawn-out, messy bankruptcies. Step 3, when it applies: basically when a creditor willingly agrees to take less than what is owed. Step 4, the key requirement: the creditor must actually accept that lesser sum in full satisfaction of the debt. And Step 5, our visual analogy: imagine a really tense negotiation scene. This is Kirpa Singh v. Bariam Singh. Bariam owes Kirpa a massive debt. Bariam's son steps in, slides a much smaller check across the table and says, "Take this as full settlement or you get absolutely nothing." Kirpa takes the check and cashes it. The court ruled that by cashing the check, Kirpa accepted the part payment and full discharge of the whole debt. Just like that, the rest of the massive debt is wiped clean. 10-second recap on the rules. A 1 ringgit Ferrari is valid because consideration only needs to be sufficient, not adequate. Consideration can totally come from a third party. Accepting a part payment can clear the whole debt. And, as proven by the English case Lampley v. Braithwaite, past consideration is indeed good consideration.
Okay, take a deep breath. We are now standing in the Grand Hall, looking at the ultimate memory palace map. Just notice how it all connects perfectly. We started right at the foundation with Section 2D defining the seesaw of exchange. Then we walked to the living room to see the Section 26 exceptions where the seesaw can literally be empty. We met our cast of characters in the timeline hallway. And finally, we just cooked up the special rules in the kitchen, like Section 64 for part payment. It is one continuous, beautiful, interconnected system.
Let's do a high-energy rapid revision check. Look at these structural pillars. You have 3 types of consideration: executory, executed, and past. You have 4 clear exceptions to Section 26: natural love, past voluntary acts, compellable duties, and statute-barred debts. And you have the vital rules: sufficient but not adequate, moving from third parties, and part payment. If you can clearly visualize these pillars in your mind, you are ready for literally any exam question they throw at you.
But hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's put your brand new memory palace to the test with a final exam recall challenge. Question 1. What is the exact difference between executed consideration and past consideration? Don't wait for me to give you the answer. Picture the characters in our hallway. Picture City. Picture Muthu. What exactly did they do and in what order? Got it? Executed is when the promise comes first and the action follows, like offering a reward and then City finds the cat. Past consideration is when the action happens completely first and the promise comes later, like Muthu rescuing you on Monday and you promising money on Tuesday. Fantastic job engaging your active recall. That is exactly how this stuff locks into your long-term memory.
Final challenge. Question 2. Which famous case proved that you can legally sell a luxury item like a Ferrari or a massive piece of land for just 1 single ringgit? Think back to the kitchen of our memory palace. We talked about it being sufficient but not adequate. What was the exact name of that case?
It was Fang Asui Kim v. Bei Ihak. Listen, if you master this memory palace, you don't just pass your exams, you actually gain power in the real world. Every single time you make a purchase, accept a gift, or negotiate a debt, you are navigating this exact seesaw of consideration. So the next time someone promises you something for absolutely free, ask yourself, is the seesaw balanced, or are you just stepping into a void agreement? Keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.